Welcome to Connect Church. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Dwayne Hawksworth, and I'm the lead pastor here at Connect in Waco. You picked a great time to be with us because today we're bringing a brand new message where we're actually going to tell you to stop going to church. There's something much better than going to church, and we're going to discuss that today. So you won't want to miss what we're talking about. Before we get started, let me invite you to get connected with us here at Connect Church, and perhaps even prayerfully and financially support what we're doing. To connect with us, all you need to do is take your cell phone and text the words Connect Church to 94,000. That's the words Connect Church to 94,000. When you do, you'll receive a link to both connect with us and to give if you'd like. You can also go to our website at connectwaco.com. To connect with us by mail, our mailing address is Connect Church P.O. Box 4317, Waco, Texas 76715. There'll be a screen at the end of our time together with this information too. Thank you again for joining us, for connecting with us, and for supporting what we're doing here at Connect Church in Waco. First, our band has a song for you. We hope you enjoy today's online celebration. Something I've always wished to have is something that is often called a green thumb. To be one of those people that are great at making plants grow and thrive. And unfortunately, I'm just not. My wife Lisa is much more a green thumb than I am. It was my privilege to pastor a man named Reese Price who certainly had an amazing green thumb. I often told him that I thought he could put a dead stick in the ground and he could make it bud and blossom. He was not only a wonderful man, but he also gave me a wonderful gift once. Reese knew how much I love pecans, and let me tell you, Lisa makes the most wonderful pecan pies. One day at church, Reese handed me a coffee can with what looked like a toothpick with about 4 or 5 leaves sticking up out of it. He told me it was from the pecan tree in his yard and it was a genetic anomaly. He explained that his tree was somehow able to grow paper shell pecans from the pecan seed. It did not have to be grafted. People from Texas A&M had even come to check his tree out because of this unique ability. I gladly and excitedly accepted his gift with great appreciation. And when I got home, Lisa and I discussed where to plant it in our yard. And when the location was chosen, I carefully planted it as he instructed me and placed a wire basket around it to protect the little seedling. Well, that was over 25 years ago. And today, it is a big, beautiful pecan tree that stands about 25 feet tall. This pecan tree is not only beautiful to look at, it also provides great shade for our grandchildren to play under. Oh, and yes, it produces a great crop of paper shell pecans, just like Reese promised it would. I think of this precious man every time I look at his wonderful and lasting gift, our big, beautiful pecan tree. Now, there's 2 things we need to understand about this big, beautiful tree. One, it didn't start out as a big, beautiful tree. It began as a seed. 2, that seed to grow into a big, beautiful tree had to be planted. We can learn a lot from that seed. Something we have here in Texas are tumbleweeds. Tumbleweeds become detached from their roots, the place they're planted, and they're blown about by the wind. Whichever way the wind blows, that's the way they go. They no longer grow. They just go from one place to another. That's the way too many people of faith are. And it sets them up for a life of frustration and failure to grow. They just blow from one place to another. Some of you today are not in church. You love Jesus, but you don't really love going to church. God's highest calling for you as a follower of Christ was never to go to church, not to go to a building. When Matthew, one of Jesus' followers, wrote down Jesus' statement, "I will build my church and all the powers of hell will not conquer it," he wasn't talking about building church buildings. Our understanding of this was tainted when the word Jesus used, ecclesia, was translated using a German word for the house of the Lord. What Jesus actually said he would build was his called out ones, his gathering or his assembly. Later in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul refers to these called out ones as a body of believers, not a building. Today, we may gather in a building for worship and fellowship, but the building is not the church. The believers, the people, the followers of Jesus are. God's highest calling isn't to go to a destination, but to be conformed to the image of Christ. Not to go to church, but be planted in the church to be the church, a light shining into a dark world. God's highest calling is never to go to a church, but to be planted in the house of God, sent out into the world. So instead of going to church, it's time instead to be planted in the house of God. Instead of going to church, it's time we start being the church. Going to church can become a duty and a drudgery, something that we do. Being the church opens the door to what Jesus intended all along. Being the church is who we are. Being the church opens the door to fulfilling relationship, doing life with Jesus and other followers of Jesus. King David of the Old Testament was a shepherd before he became a king. Growing up in an agricultural world, David knew something about planting and growing things too. In the very first Psalm, Psalm 1, verses 2 and 3, we have a psalm that King David wrote. He describes those who desire to know and serve God. They delight in the law of the Lord, meditating on it day and night. They are like trees planted along the riverbank, bearing fruit each season. Their leaves never wither. They prosper in all they do. When we desire to live according to God's word, the Bible, the scriptures, we are like trees planted in a good place. Because these trees are planted in a good place, they prosper and grow. Because these trees are planted in a good place, they withstand the changes in the weather and are healthy and grow. We read in Psalm 92 and verse 12, "But the godly will flourish like palm trees and grow strong like the cedars of Lebanon." The word flourish is not a word we commonly use, but it has a very useful definition for our discussion today. Webster's 1828 dictionary provides many definitions with scriptural reference, so I enjoy looking up the meaning of words there to see the biblical connections. Webster's 1828 dictionary gives the word flourish this meaning: to thrive, to grow luxuriantly, to increase and enlarge as a healthy, growing plant. Those who are planted are those who flourish. What do we need to recognize? You need to recognize that your life is a seed. Our lives, spiritually, physically, and emotionally, are all intertwined together. For each of these aspects of our lives to grow, to flourish, we must be planted. Who flourishes? Those who are planted in the house of God. Scripture further shows us what the growth of planted lives looks like in the Old Testament book of Numbers, chapter 24 and verse 6. They spread before me like palm groves, like gardens by the riverside. They are like tall trees planted by the Lord, like cedars beside the waters. Your life is a seed. What does that mean? That means a seed has tremendous potential. When planted, your life has tremendous potential. A seed has the potential to grow, to thrive, to multiply, to produce fruit, to be a blessing to others. But a seed that's not planted has the potential to lie dormant, unproductive, unfruitful, and dissatisfied. Your life is a seed, but a seed can only grow if it's planted. Jesus taught a very important and powerful parable or teaching story about the power of a properly placed seed. It's found in the New Testament letter written by one of Jesus' followers named Mark. You can read this in Mark chapter 4, verses 3 through 9. Listen, a farmer went out to plant some seed. As he scattered it across his field, some of the seed fell on a footpath, and the birds came and ate it. Other seed fell on shallow soil with underlying rock. The seed sprouted quickly because the soil was shallow, but the plant soon wilted under the hot sun, and since it didn't have deep roots, it died. Other seed fell among thorns that grew up and choked out the tender plants, so they produced no grain. Still other seeds fell on fertile soil, and they sprouted, grew, and produced a crop that was 30, 60, and even 100 times as much as had been planted. Then he said, anyone with ears to hear should listen and understand. In this parable, Jesus shows the contrast between those who are improperly planted and those who are properly planted in good soil. 3 seeds fail to grow due to temptation, the cares of life, or failure to develop deep roots. In contrast, 1 seed is planted on purpose in good and fertile soil. That seed produces an abundant and fruitful harvest. Isn't that the kind of life you want to live? Church isn't a destination you attend. If you're a follower of Jesus, the church is who you are. Instead of going to church, it's time to start being the church. There are numerous instances of ancient seeds that were found, some of them thousands of years old. These seeds were planted and grew. Time did not stop the power of a planted seed to grow. Some of you feel like your spiritual life is dormant and lifeless. You can change that today by deciding to get planted and allowing the growing process to start. The amazing difference between you and a seed is that you have the choice of where you will be planted. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. What will you do today to become deeply rooted? We have an opportunity today to get planted, to thrive spiritually, to live a life that's fruitful, productive, and beneficial. That's who Jesus wants us to be. To do that, we must first be planted. If you're not planted in good spiritual soil, pray today, asking the Lord to help you find a good place to grow. If you are planted in good soil, pray today, asking the Lord to help you continue to grow and thrive in the light of His love.